Hey guys, so I thought I'd hop on here and give you an update on what I'm calling JARVIS V4. So it's kind of like the second edition of my agent control dashboard. And how it is structured is the structure has changed a little bit, but generally, if you don't know about any of this, I'll give you a high level overview. So think of it like you have ChatGPT and you create new conversations with ChatGPT. And one of the most important things about managing those conversations with ChatGPT is making sure you don't fill out the context. When the context fills up, that means the memory of the AI is filled up. So you can see here, I've said 44 prompts, and now the AI's memory is stuck at 63%. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit refresh, and what that does is it resets the context, the memory of the agent, and it'll be able to execute a little bit more cleanly. But what this system is essentially a dashboard for controlling multiple AI agents. But the biggest difference is these agents are integrated to infrastructure, so live server infrastructure. And so I can access the terminal of that agent here, and I can prompt it. So I can say, hi, this is the human in the loop situation. And then in this one, this is where I fire up the processes and monitors and tasks and whatnot. The agent is essentially made up of context that is injected at the model load. So as soon as I fire up the AI, I teach it everything it needs to know about the task, and then it executes the task. And the idea that I came up with was that, you know, I used to have a whole bunch of different, chat windows with AI and going but I couldn't execute anything in a systematic way. AI had no access to system or infrastructure, and that's where this dashboard was developed. It was developed so that I could control tons of agents. And as you can see, if I remove that, there are a lot of agents in here, hundreds of website agents where clients are messaging the agent is doing the change and then rolling it out. And part of the magic of that, again, is you take AI, you bridge it, you marry it with infrastructure, and then you give your clients an ability to chat and talk with the AI, and you end up with something very unique. And that's exactly what this is. Okay. So what I'm going to do is a little demo of it, and then we can chat a little bit about it just so you can see. So let's go and open an app called Rocket.Chat. If you're not sure what Rocket.Chat is, it's an open source messaging chat system that is very good. It is one of the best in the world by a long shot. And it's kind of like Discord. I mean, if you've never used anything like Discord or something like that, it's essentially the same thing, just open source and better, in my view, for integration purposes, right? When you're in the driver's seat, you control the code, you control where it lives. Often the experience of tech is much better because it's built with purpose, not built with profit in mind. So open source tech tends to be amazing. And if you think about it, it's all open source languages that AI is writing, right? Because it's good stuff. So what we're going to do is let's go. I'm going to stop sharing this section of the screen for a second. I'm going to go share. I'm going to share desktop one, and we will just share the whole desktop, and let us bring over our little Rocket.Chat agent here. So we're going to go over to Rocket.Chat. We're going to sign in. Okay. And we'll see if I can sign in here or if it's going to be silly. That's okay. I might bring over another window here. So I'm waiting. I think my computer is overworked and underpaid. So let's take a look at this. There. Okay, so this is the window. Now I was just making some example sites. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say prune messages. I'm just going to delete the messages in this channel. Yes, prune them. Go back to the channel, exit, and let us say, hey, Jarvis. Okay. So what you're going to see here in a moment is this little agent box over here is going to light up. All right. And so it's lighting up because it's got the command, the Hey Jarvis command that I sent it. And you'll see that it replies in a second, right? Hey, I'm here. So I'm going to say, hey, Jarvis, can you make me a tailwind CSS CDN driven website about, I don't know, let's sell a product about the Tesla Model Y. Kind of interested in one of those right now. Um, so it's going to go in the background. Now, what you're going to see is, jar is going to light up and it's going to start working. So if we want to be the human in the loop, we can open up the terminal and we can actually watch Jarvis do all this work, right? So it's working, it's doing all this work. And the cool part about it is it's also updating its context as it goes. So if I look at, the log files and everything, I'm tracking everything. And this is part of the application that I built that I'm calling Jarvis v4. But the idea is every code change, everything that happens is being logged, right? And stored in memory in the agent so that on recall, the agent has, everything, right? So as it gets close to finishing, let's go grab that and we'll just wait for a second and Jarvis will reply with a beautifully constructed website. And we'll be able to see that in a second. Okay, there it is. So let's click on the Model Y website. Okay, there it is. Beautiful website, ready to go. Now, obviously, if I wanted to make a change, right, I would just simply go back to Jarvis and I would say, let's change or um, let's add a new nav item about, I don't know, auto drive. Okay. So let's go back to here and let's say, hey, can we add a section about the Tesla auto drive feature on the nav item? Okay. So what we'll see here in a second is, yeah, Jarvis gets to work. It got the prompt, right? But the client doesn't see anything. Like the client doesn't see this, right? The client just sees, the chat system, the interface, this box, right? So I would add the client to talk to Jarvis. And then in the background, I'm managing the context for the client, right? And I had this really interesting thing happen where I onboarded this client and the client came on and he wanted to build a website, never built a website before. And he's making all the typical mistakes. He's not thinking about responsive because he never built a website. So he's just doing the same thing. Now, in the past, I would have to, jump in there as the specialist, I have to say, actually, you can't do that. You can't. There's the autopilot page that it added to the net, but you can't do that, and you can't do this, and I have to go back and forth with the client quite a bit, trying to convince them of what's the right thing to do, and they would have a vision in mind. They said, well, it doesn't look like my vision, and so I went into the agent's memory and I was like, okay, this client's never built a website, subtly push them in the right direction and blah, blah, blah. And I watched, Jarvis like slowly, do that. And the client built an amazing website, which was kind of a hilarious, addition of actually, that's a really good example of managing context for a client, right? But where I want to take Jarvis and kind of this whole strategy is this is websites. This is like apps. I've been doing this for years. It's not really that interesting besides, clients can prompt changes and get AI to do things. But there are these really interesting workflows that emerge. So watch this. If I say, go get me a CSV of all the Tesla models and construct it with specs for me, okay? And upload that CSV here, right? So a bigger task, right? More interesting than a website change. So what Jarvis is going to do in the background, he's going to go research the internet. He's going to go do all that work, right? And then he's going to upload that CSV. And this is where things start to get interesting because you think about, well, what other things can I create a prompt-based workflow for? And you're going to see like the sky's the limit. And so I had all these ideas, I did like the stock trading one, I did, apps, I did the email marketing app, so when AI came out, I was like, oh, I'm going to build the best email marketing app and I'm going to steal MailChimp's market share because, they're $100 billion company. And so I built that app. But the problem is that, clients need training and you're like, oh man, like this is such a drag because you have to walk each client through how does your app work? How does it do this? And I thought, well, wait a minute. Why am I even building an app? Why don't I just build a agent that can email, right? And that's what I did with Jarvis. And so you can see here on the left, I've got these apps, right? And the agent has Rocket.Chat access, but the agent also has mail access. And so what this enables me to do is email people with a prompt, right? But first, let's just see so there's the Tesla model CSV, right? We can open that up, check the quality of it. Let's go check the quality of this and see if it's any good. So there it is. There's all the quality. There's the documents. Looks pretty decent, right? So again, that's an agentic workflow, right? That's where I would say you take a prompt, you go do real work, and then you do something. But here's another example. Send me an email newsletter that's amazing and beautiful to swift1@gmail.com. Enter. So the agent has access to a module, an email, and it's actually going to do that whole thing. So there's nothing stopping me from taking like a members list and saying, hey, email these 1,000 people about this new product that I have, assuming you have the right to send it to them, right? Um, and it'll just do it. And that's kind of like, well, that's a powerful workflow because now I don't have to waste any time doing any of this manual work, right? And so if you're a client watching this, or if you're just a researcher, this is part of the amazing thing you can do, right? You can take very complex things and break them down into simple prompt commands. So it sent the dispatch. Let's go to my inbox, and there's the beautiful Tesla Model Y newsletter that it sent me. So bear in mind that these tasks all happen with very little context. And one of the things that I'm doing for clients and that more and more people are going to start doing is you got to manage context, manage it well, right? Manage that context length, and you will do exceptionally well. I often have this struggle, conflict with people who are like, oh, AI sucks, or AI did a bad job, or AI did this. And I say, absolutely, AI can make mistakes. However, the majority of the mistakes that it makes is because it doesn't have context to either the problem, the situation, or what your intent is of the prompt. And if you provide that context, if you architect that, then you're inferring something to AI that it can handle that, right? It can actually do that thing. And so that's been one of the tricks. So this is kind of a demo of Jarvis v4. I have a lot of ideas. We got to think outside of the world of websites. We got to think about doctors' offices. Imagine if doctors' offices managed all their patients as context inside of an agent. Think how amazing that diagnosing would be over time, right? That's one of the reasons why I'm putting this video together, because websites, not so interesting. They've been around for a long time, but agents deployed in industries like healthcare, well, that's a major win. Suddenly there's room for lots of change. And the list goes on from there, right? One of the things that I was thinking about, if any of you have played StarCraft or any of these RTS games, what's interesting about those games is that when you learn to play StarCraft and you reach the level of like you're the South Korean master, goes through, right? You're just like incredibly good. What you're actually good at is macro operations. But the thing that allows you to do that is the UI, or the system that's presented in StarCraft. And I'm thinking about that as I'm building Jarvis v4. I'm like, well, wait a minute. How could I control like 200 units and patrol them and give all these different tasks to the units? The units just did that. And so what if I could like mimic that in control of agents? And that's actually what got me building Jarvis v4, was really trying to mimic like a little bit of that gamification that we see in the real world, and how can we like increase our output. And so there's lots of places that this workflow can be developed. So if I had like 10 robots, I would still have this problem, right? Without a good interface, a good agent control dashboard. I'd have 10 robots and I say, I want you to do this, I want you to do that. But what am I going to go talk to them all? right? I could, right? But you're still going to need a dashboard to control all of that function. And that's really what I'm getting at. And interestingly enough, I started building this 2 months ago, 2.5 months ago. Google Scion released something, and I looked at the stack, like the tech stack, what Google did. I was like, wow, it's like they did it the same way I did it. They're using tmux, they're using server infrastructure, they're using user separation. And I'm like, okay, so like obviously there's something here. But hopefully you enjoy this presentation. I appreciate, the people on my channel and putting up with all my BlackBerry videos. I'm a fan of the old Blackberries, and that's never going away. But I'm using this channel to market a little bit more of what I'm doing on the daily basis. So feel free to, if you're interested in development or DevOps or infrastructure management or any of those things, shoot me a comment, a question. I go as low as the kernel on most operating systems, and I understand, the stacks that build a lot of these systems that we use. So feel free to ask me questions. Happy to help, and we'll talk again soon.